And welcome back to this Shipper Update. I'm Zach Strickland here with lead economist Anthony Smith. Anthony Smith, we're in the middle of the week. What do we got going on?
So Zach, yesterday we were talking about the updates for the week, and one of the ones that I was excited about that just happened, of course, was ISM PMI.
Right.
Another one that doesn't really get as much attention is going to be construction spending. And so we have construction spending here behind me, and that's going to be in the blue line. And we have, of course, in the orange line, the flatbed outbound tender rejection index, the one that I can't go a day without. And so looking at the two, you can really see the relationship between the two. As residential spending for construction goes up, so does flatbed activity, or the capacity gets tighter. Now, of course, the thing to note here with construction spending is that there's going to be some inflationary pressures. So goods are going to cost more. So, but after that, after you get past some of the inflation, there's still more activity here. And so when we look at overall construction spending, it did rise 1.3%. And that seems to almost be the theme for this report, because not only did that rise 1.3%, residential spending rose 1.3%. And a little bit later on, we're going to talk about non-res. That also rose 1.3%. So maybe play those numbers. I don't know. I'm just an economist here. But we're looking at this upward movement. We are definitely seeing that manufacturing, of course, one of those streams that did really feed into flatbed activity, but also can't forget about construction, which is going to be ramping up, especially as we start to see some of these warmer months. Now, the thing that also have to kind of keep in mind here is that there was a little bit of a pull forward from some individuals when you look at construction activity, because some folks want to get ahead of those anticipated interest rate increases. So that could mean a little bit of a softer spring-ish, a little bit on the latter half of it when we go into summer, because some of those orders were pulled forward, some of those permits were pulled forward. But that does mean that there's still a ton of backlog. There is still a ton of homes that are going to be under construction that have not yet been completed, and the completion times are also getting extended. So that's going to be something to watch closely. But of course, we have to look at residential to kind of lead that charge for some of those flatbed activities. But going into our next chart here, one of the areas I said don't overlook and don't forget about is going to be non-residential, because this also increased. This is slowly but surely going up, and I have high hopes for this segment as we get to the latter half of 2022 going into 2023, especially with some of the infrastructure stuff coming up as well.
Yeah, so the non-residential, of course, not the housing units that people tend to put a lot of the attention on. The non-residential, this is kind of a tangential thing that you use to measure like capital expenditures and things like that. Is that correct?
That is right. I mean, I'm looking at this report here, and we say I have manufacturing, which increased 8.4% for the month, and that's going to be 31.4% increase on a year-over-year basis. So there is some momentum here. Now, when we're looking at that, that's not going to be the biggest contributor to the trend, so you have to take some of that with a grain of salt. But of course, we're still seeing that highway and street and sewage and waste disposal also areas of growth as well. So there is still quite a bit of upward movement here. Moving into our next chart, mentioned it earlier, and that is the ISM PMI. We did get the update here. We saw that it did hover a little bit closer to where it was previous month. It was a 1 percentage point increase up to 58.6. So slight increase for the overall PMI. New orders increased 3.8 percentage points. So that had a little bit of a momentum boost in there. And Zach, the one that I was really watching closely, as you know, backlog of orders. That increased 8.6 percentage points. So the backlog increased quite a bit, while prices really kind of remained at this level, down 0.5%. So the big news, new orders and backlogs building up. That's really telling when we look at manufacturing activity, because we are anticipating it to have that slower growth trend, but this only kind of elongates that trend overall. So it can be a slower growth trend that just kind of extends throughout the remainder of the year, because when we're looking at the number of backlogs, when we're looking at the number of new orders still coming in, it's very telling. And especially as we see these warmer months, as you know, manufacturing starting to come back online, it's only saying that, hey, this flatbed activity is really about to ramp up even more so.
Yeah, I think this kind of contradicts a lot of what we were kind of thinking that might happen. Like, we'd see a little bit of easing, especially on the order side, as some of these orders haven't been able to be fulfilled. The backlogs are still pretty high, so it's like, why would you order something? But it sounds like, to me, and I think Tony may be talking about this a little bit on the spot, that, you know, we've kind of had this continuation of people trying to get as much orders in as possible, because capacity simply isn't available, so you never know when you're going to get it, right?
That's exactly right. And the other big part here always kind of gets I don't want to say shoved under the rug, because this is a big one, employment. We saw employment also coming in strong, 52.9 percentage points for the latest PMI, so also expanding. But you look through these respondents and they'll say that, you know, hey, we need more skilled labor. We need more workers because we can have all these orders in and no one to make it. And
Right.
of course, when we look at the decline in COVID rates, this is a good thing. More utilization, more efficiency in these warehouses and manufacturers. But shippers upstream definitely having a hard go at it in these spring months, and it's definitely going to be a lot of activity coming up.
Yeah, I think we're in for a lot longer cycle here, for sure. To your point, I mean, it's hard to like imagine that we can still be in this super hot environment, but it looks like things are going to continue for the time being. Well, thank you so much, Anthony Smith. We'll toss it back over to Kaylee.